Hello, all. Welcome back to Proactive is the Way. Today, we are continuing our exploration on how to choose abundance over the illusion of scarcity. In an effort to better understand the origin of this mindset, we selected a book to help us consider potential reasons why we develop this mindset, and we explored some techniques to help us overcome it. So we selected Don't Believe Everything You Think by Joseph Wynn. Last week, I provided an overview of the book. And if you would like to check that out, please watch part one of this series, Beyond Survival, Choosing Abundance Over the Illusion of Scarcity. So today, Tiffany and I, we will chat a little bit about this book. First, Tiffany, I just want to ask you because it's been some time. You were supposed to come here today, but I didn't get to see you. And I think the last time we spoke was, it feels like a long time ago. I mean, when I
It
say spoke,
does.
I'm talking
But
about
it was
like
in February.
in February, right? Did our show together was like in February. But so what's been up? How's things been?
Things have been going okay. Just still trying to recover. Um, I am busy, very busy as, doing the contracting work, but also busy here working on myself, working to improve, myself.
Okay.
So every opportunity I can, I
Mhm.
have been well, I didn't work out. I haven't worked out for like a week and a half. And
Really?
it's amazing um how quickly these days go by.
Hmm.
And it gets sad and overwhelming when you can't do those things, especially like working out, right? Or
Right.
you just don't
But
have
you
the same
always
level of
go
energy.
early. You go normally real early in the morning now.
I normally go in between 2 and 4 a.m. But here's the thing.
Uh-huh.
Lately I've been falling into deeper sleep. I've actually been achieving REM
Oh,
where I haven't
good.
been. I don't think it's good for me because I have vivid dreams. So
Okay.
mhm. And they're always so detailed, and so and I wake up feeling overwhelmed that I dreamed whatever.
Hmm.
I wake up with like an anxious feeling,
Okay.
almost kind of like a feeling of uncertainty.
Okay.
And I'm tired of feeling like that because, I did the business venture. I'm doing the business venture, and uh, you know, I took my platform exclusively online. So now I'm only telehealth.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and so doing so, that doesn't bring me the anxiety. I have clarity about that, right? Because if you
Okay.
look on Instagram, if you look on anywhere, there's not this true brick and mortar. The true brick and mortar
Yeah.
will now just be a write-off,
Right.
a loss, huge
Right.
loss.
Hmm.
But yeah, no, so but everything, you know what? I want to stay positive. So I want to choose to see the silver lining, as you say, all the time,
Hmm. Hmm.
within the things that I am going through, the things that I put myself through, because in reality, I put myself through this, right? Because I was living a good life.
Right.
I was living a good life. I didn't have to do no damn business venture. I don't know what I'm trying to test. But I knew that the only way I would come back to Dayton is if I had my own business. Cause me, I'm just not built. I'm not made to be working for somebody. I'm not made to build someone else's dreams.
Right. Right.
But yeah,
But you
how have
had
you
to
been?
try. I think
Yeah,
as long as you were doing it, and we're actually going to talk, it's interesting that you brought that up because we're actually going to talk about that when we set goals and our ambitions. What are we really trying? Why are we doing it? And what are we trying to get out of it? Right.
right,
And
exactly.
right. And for you, I thought, as you mentioned, that you were trying to really work for yourself. You were trying to, and not that you weren't already an entrepreneur, but it wasn't in your discipline.
Right,
And in a way, you are because you were a contractor, but there's nothing like having to report, to yourself, having to be able to manage your operations, develop your strategy, etc. completely, right? To have
right,
the full scope of what it is to be an entrepreneur. I think it's good that you experience that, right?
right,
So now you understand the components of entrepreneurship that really resonates with you, and some where you might say, oh, I need to have a little bit more development in this area. And because entrepreneurship, there's a lot of ebb and flows in entrepreneurship, right? You're not
right,
going, some folks, yes, they might get it right off the bat and find success. And then there's others who have that jungle gym journey, if you will. It's not
right,
a linear process in the sense that you begin and immediately you find success. Entrepreneurship is really a journey of ebb and flows, yeah,
hmm,
ups and downs, right?
right,
So it's good that you experienced that, and now you're in telehealth, doing a little bit of remote healthcare, providing remote healthcare services, which is really what a lot of businesses are going to. Well, they state that they're moving back, but it depends on what type of business that is. But a lot of people are transitioning into that space. And so there's some benefits that come out of that, in which I'm sure that you're going to have an opportunity to explore. Because with telehealth, now you're not bound to one single location, right? You
right,
can
exactly. I
travel,
could be
live
anywhere.
anywhere
Right,
doing that, right?
right.
So that's a beautiful opportunity. So yeah, I can't wait to see the transition that you go through with that and what you learn, what comes of that. So congratulations for your
Thank
new
you.
endeavor. Yeah, for sure, for sure. But this is actually, that's actually a great segue. You always giving me some good segues because we actually, in this book that we are going to be discussing today, was a component, as I had shared earlier, as it related to, the why behind our goals, our ambitions, and what we would accomplish based on that why. We'll talk a little bit about that later on, but what I'd like to begin with is the fact that within this book, I'm going to tell you right now, I felt like I got so much more out of it than I anticipated.
Mm,
So, yeah, I came into this particular topic, as you know, my topics are pretty much set every year.
uh-huh.
And how I design my podcast is just to, because I'm trying to develop in a particular area, or I really want to focus on a particular area, is to find, literature that will give me different perspective, have more solid understanding in a particular area. And in this book, there were just a lot of gems that was being dropped that I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting to get that out of the book, but I was glad that I did.
Hmm.
And so we'll talk a little bit about some of those gems. But if I could ask you, based on your listening, because I listen to the material on a scale of 1 to 5. with five being, top notch, must read. What Where would you rate it? Where did you rank it? And what did you like most about it?
I would like to give a disclaimer here, because as often as I do, I do this often with you. I'll call you and be like, girl, now that book, even though we're supposed to wait until now to discuss it, I would give it like a 3.5 because I do not believe, and it's always for me just that one statement. It always comes down to it. Something throws me off, and then it just takes it down a notch for me. Whereas when I first started listening, I was like, "Oh no, this is good." And the way that I formulated in my mind is like the length of the audiobook,
Okay.
right? I'm like,
Okay.
is this even feasible, to get an understanding? Of course it is. 2 hours
Right.
and 45 minutes.
You
I
can
could
do
listen
that.
to this like 5 times and master
Right.
some of these concepts, some of these principles, right?
Uh-huh.
But he almost started to sound too cliche for me,
Okay.
with some of the things he was saying. Although what I do appreciate is when people do have concepts, for example, like when people do have concepts and they use an acronym. So the
Okay.
pause
Okay.
acronym that he used for me. It helped me because I consider myself like a disciplined person. I like structure.
Mm-hmm.
I like for things to technically be spelled out. And he did that very well with that
Mm-hmm.
pause concept, and so I appreciated that. But I already hinted to you that I didn't like his description at all that he made about when he asked his wife the question, and then he went into it's because it was unconditional. That sound like that was you were getting to the end of the book and you were running out of things to think of, and that was like it wasn't an epiphany to me.
Okay. You
It
felt like
seemed
that was
very
something that didn't need to be
manufactured.
okay.
I felt like there could have been more depth to that, and that might be a little too critical because again, these were just subjective, right? This is something from his own personal experience, and that's what
Correct.
he devised. But it just everything else seemed real, and then that came along, and it didn't seem real anymore for me.
Okay. Okay.
Like the realness of it, like the authenticity. It didn't seem authentic to me. That explanation did not. It
Okay.
seemed like
Okay.
he was reaching.
Reaching for something. Okay. Okay.
But I
And
don't see you couldn't see that. Like
well,
everyone.
I already told you my perspective
Oh
on
well, yeah,
the end. I shared with regards to that he was, from my perspective, was trying to find a personal point of view. Although he went through some personal point of views as he was going through the explanation, but that was one that was personal to him and how he related his understanding of what he shared with us in his own life.
right.
And the other component of it was I said, I said, um, I felt like he he displayed feminine characteristics,
Oh
is
yeah, you were saying
masculine. I was like, because isn't that what women say and do? And I said, I wonder. I said, she must be the masculine in the family. And I said that because I was like, women are always asking that question,
right. She
right?
wears
And
the
wanting
pants.
to, right, what are you thinking? How do you feel about me, etc. And when he
Uh-huh.
said that, I was like, oh, that's interesting. That's a bit
And his
role
name is
reversal.
it is, and his name is Asian, so that's unusual even for their culture.
Well, I don't know. Asian men tend to have more feminine characteristics from my point of view. In their
Well, physically,
behaviorisms, it's oh, his name.
but I don't think like emotionally, they're kind of, I don't know. I live in an Asian neighborhood.
I
My
know you do. That's
observation,
what
they don't seem emotional.
oh, well, I mean, different. It just probably depends on upbringing too,
It might
like,
depend on the type of Asian too,
and
because
the type of
when when
agents that
is
you're
when is Vietnamese usually.
Vietnamese, right? But I believe
I don't
his
know, just
religious
culturally.
background, culturally, like there's a mixture within him. So
Yeah.
we,
And again, I could
we
be being too critical, just taking that one concept and then like flying off the handle. Because I'm telling you, when I walked, I was walking the dog when I was listening.
uh-huh.
And when he said that, I was like, oh, now come on now, out loud. I was like, I was like, okay, now come on now, come on. I don't know why that irritated me. It irritated me though. Yeah.
Different. Well, and I will share with you. So when I asked you earlier about how would you rate the book, I was at a 4. and
Oh, okay.
and
So we
yeah,
was close.
we were very close. I was almost at like a 3.54, but mine was more so around the concepts, right? There were a couple points in the book that really caused me to pause, really caused me to pause, and not in the sense of how he taught pause, but just pause in terms of being able to digest the concepts and determine as to whether or not I agree with it. And one of them was around just the whole idea of scarcity and mindset. I'll be honest with you, when I first develop this topic, when I think about scarcity, I always think about it from an economical perspective, right? So, not having enough resources, you, and because we don't have enough resources, the behavior and the characteristics that people exude when there's not enough. And so I had a focus around that without fully thinking comprehensively about scarcity, that there's other ways to think about it. And he focused on it from an emotional and a relational perspective, as it related to people who have enough, but they exude imposter syndrome. Or, and what I mean by that is that they have enough, they've done enough, they're very successful, but they feel like they need to do more, and they're always constantly reaching. And he positioned that as scarcity. And so I struggled with that. I was like, no, I didn't struggle with it, but I was like, oh, that's a different way to look at it. I don't think I looked at scarcity in that manner, right? So for me, I looked at it, from a standpoint of, competition, individuals intentionally unleveling the playing field, information hoarding, sabotaging. But he helped me to understand that there's a different way to look at it, and I appreciated that. But
Hmm.
I'm still digesting it. I'm like, do I call that scarcity? But I'm still digesting that. The other point was the notion of how our thinking plays into self sabotage. Um, he talked a lot about the difference between a thought and thinking,
Hmm.
and the steps in which we could take to shift out of thinking into a state of contentment and flow within our lives. And I struggled with that because I was like, gosh, have I ever looked at thought and thinking as two separate entities? I always looked at them jointly, right? If I have a thought, I'm going to be thinking about that thought and then, come to a conclusion, etc. So that concept of and separating a thought and thinking, that that was a bit complex for me. And and so I spent a lot of time trying to understand where he was coming with that. But to go back to your point, one of the things that I truly appreciated is that throughout the book, he had an understanding, right? He had an understanding that some of the concepts that he was sharing was Eastern. centric and leaned on Buddhist teachings. And
Uh-huh.
if
That's what I was
you
just getting ready to tell you.
were you
To
about to
your
say,
point,
mm-hmm,
about the thought and thinking, I was
right,
able to relate it to mindfulness and meditation.
correct that
That's
because you
exactly what
hear.
I couldn't hear what you said. You said what?
No, I was just saying because that's exactly what you hear and we learn about when we are meditating. And when you grow up with in a particular cultural environment and that environment doesn't necessarily teach you that respective concept, that it's a struggle to understand the thought,
Right.
the thinking, all those differences and the nuances within. And what I appreciated is that he really took time to help us understand why these two are separate, right? And so with that knowledge and the concerted effort that he made to help us better understand, it really helped me to um, better understand how I can leverage that concept to improve within my own life, and how do I want to say, navigate the experiences that I have within my own life. So that was something. Tell me some key points that resonated with you.
So, like I said, the pause concept, and the reason I was able to extract from his teaching or from his principles that he authored, the reason I was able to extract from that about the mindfulness and the meditations because he started with awareness.
Okay.
We have poor awareness. And you know
Mm-hmm.
why? It's because of all of this noise. You know what? It's almost like we're constantly looking at. You remember back in the day when we had those TVs and it would go static, and then you would just be watching that. That's what this whole entire existence from probably 20, maybe it started in 2018 or 2019, but I have never
Further back.
even further back than that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
maybe, maybe like real big, huge life events cause such a shift, right? So maybe mommy's stroke, something, and it's a shift that doesn't have to happen, right? Like it's a preventative shift. But when it occurs with such a it occurs at a high magnitude that it ends up shifting the course, the trajectory of life in such a static way, like that TV screen. Because when I tell you all of this noise around us
Mm-hmm.
makes us so unaware, not aware as in recognizing, oh, here comes that man coming from down the street. He's walking fast towards me. He must be about to try to kidnap me and put me in the white van. Nothing like that, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's awareness, like spiritual awareness, like, and there's a lot of warfare going on, the spiritual warfare going on. I'm sure you are ad nauseum aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
But the steps of pause helped me to focus, right? Helped me to center my beliefs, because when people start talking, I go all off in 15 different directions
Mm-hmm.
with what they're saying, and with me listening to the audiobook. That's why I say I need to get to where I'm reading this stuff as opposed to listening, because when I tell you my brain goes at 100,000 when I'm reading I'm listening to these different audiobooks.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, what about this? Like a little child. What about this? Oh, well, how does that correlate? That sort of
Right.
thing. But
Right.
pause. So the steps of pause, the pause, P is for pause, A is for acknowledge, U is for understand, S is for step back, and E experience the present.
Mm-hmm.
We don't experience the present.
Mm-hmm. No. No.
We're not there.
Right. Right. And it's going
And
to take time.
isn't that overwhelming though? It's so overwhelming to me. That is very overwhelming to me, not
Mhm.
staying present.
Right.
And to know it though, it's almost like It's almost like the dementia patient that knows they're going through dementia. It's probably why Robin Williams killed himself, because he was in two different dimensions. Because dementia is dimensions.
Okay.
They in two different dimensions.
Okay.
The mind is scattered. That
Okay.
you know, there is a physiological reason why, right?
Mm-hmm.
Physiology in this sense is just functional. There is a physiological reason why um, the brain is deteriorating. But is it because you spent so much time in the wrong dimension? You weren't you weren't present,
Oh, present. Mm-hmm.
and you're not aware.
Mm-hmm. So almost like because we didn't leverage the gift or the neural pathway of
Mhm.
maintaining presence, it deteriorated.
Right. Like it just goes away. Kind of like you don't use it, you lose it.
You lose it, right? Yeah, I mean, perhaps I'm
I
not
don't
a
know. I don't know.
neurologist.
That's anecdotal. And that's
Right.
anecdotal. That's not
Hmm.
evidence based. I'm
Not
not
at
I'm
all.
not purporting that to be
But it's something that
evidence based.
it's something to think about,
Yeah,
right?
but honestly, like to me, it's overwhelming to kind of get and kind of know that you're not being aware. And when somebody brings it to my attention, it is just it's painful to me, actually.
Hmm.
It
Hmm.
brings me a certain level of pain that I'm not present.
Right.
Like when people are talking,
Hmm.
I don't like that.
Right.
Whereas because I was able to do it before.
Hmm.
But all
Well,
of this technology and chaos and all of these distractions, I mean, we are so distracted. We
mhm.
have no idea, but I don't want to be distracted.
Right.
Some
Right.
people are okay with that because they don't want to look at the reality of their situation. So
Hmm.
they're okay with being distracted,
Right.
but I don't,
Well,
yeah.
we have not been taught that. I think, and that's the beauty of experiencing a global community, right? Because where we have a fault, there is another community who knows the way. And it's helpful when we can be. I talked a couple weeks ago about how we're so closed-minded and we're not open and receptive to new ideas. This is I mean, it's an old idea in the Eastern Hemisphere, but it's a new concept, I think, in the Western Hemisphere, and it's not something that we've always been taught until very recent. You see, like the Dalai Lama, who has now come in with Emory University. They are helping to teach mindfulness in the schools, and of course, in the U.S., Christians had wanted to make sure that there was a Christian spin on those teachings
Yeah,
because
and that's
I
BS.
say that again.
That's BS. Because
Well,
because our clergy, let's just put the elephant on let's put the elephant in the room and turn the light on, okay? First and foremost, Christianity is fake. Now, I believe in God. I
mhm,
believe in God.
mhm,
That's to make money.
mhm,
The Christian religion is about money. That's
mhm,
what that is about. Because what setup is it that clergy doesn't have to pay taxes? For what reason do they not need to pay taxes? What reason do they not need to contribute? You can't make them have a church and contribute to the community. How is it that most churches and Black churches, the surrounding community, we talked about this before on a podcast, the surrounding community looks like a third world country. Look at the west side of Dayton.
mhm,
They got churches that sit dead in the middle, roads tore up, but the church does not have to contribute.
mhm,
The clergy does not have to pay taxes.
mhm,
They don't have to make any contribution,
mhm,
but they get to benefit from our taxes.
Right.
They get to benefit. They get to benefit from the
The
what am I trying to
ties of
say?
their the ties
Yeah,
and
but there is no mandate. There is no look at Joel Osteen when
hmm
that flood happened and those people had nowhere to go, or that a natural disaster happened, those people had nowhere to go. He wouldn't
hmm
even open his church door so people could sleep on the floor.
hmm hmm
So for them to try to put their spin on it is that colonialism, colonial aspect
hmm
or perspective or spin that they need to put on it so that they can immerse it into capitalism, so that they can capitalize on it and then spoil and distort it
hmm
with money.
Right. Right. But
To
yeah, I
pervert
mean,
it, to pervert it with money, because money is perversion. Think
hmm
about it. Think about the things that happen because of money.
hmm
There's a whole street here, Figueroa, Highway 3035, they call it. You can get on
hmm
Instagram and look. Beautiful women walking up and down the street,
hmm
offer with for something they think is going to get them ahead. Money.
hmm But I mean, so from my perspective, we already know about, and we have our viewpoints with regards to our religious institutions, etc. But here in the U.S., it is very Christian oriented, very Christian based, and there always has to be a Christian lens placed over any teaching. And I'm not necessarily against that. I'm not necessarily against it, but it had what is being taught from our Eastern traditions and from the Eastern Buddhism and things of that nature. I think will prove over time to be helpful because while we are taught legalism within our you and I, we grew up Christian, right? I transitioned to Islam, and even in Islam, there's legalism as well. There were components that were missing, and that these Eastern teachings are bringing to the forefront and helping us to understand, we have to be more mindful. We have to have this level of awareness. We have to be individuals who focus more on living in the present, and doing so for the betterment of not only our state but also of others, um, for our health, psychologically, physically, etc. And so I really, especially within this book, I think it really helped us. It 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 it's it's not a new concept, but here it's fairly new. I think it really is going to help us and our children even, because as I was mentioning earlier, especially with the Dalai Lama and he has a C program about our ethics and making sure that we are more mindful, that we exude compassion for one another, etc. I think it's going to be helpful for the greater population when we have the capability to live in the present moment without being side how do I want to say without losing ourselves. But yeah, no, that was a very good point, that you did make with regards to Christianity, with regards to how we do have to have that lens here. But that's the state of our culture, and it's a topic that we can definitely speak on, during another session that we have. Um, so just to do a quick shift, because I really wanted you to the things that resonated with you. So you had shared earlier about the notion of pausing, about the notion of living in the present. One of the things that I wanted to bring up was the fact how he talked about how we were as humans. So going back into time, because you going back into time when we had to live in tribal communities in order to ensure that we were safe and secure. And during that time, we literally had to think about survival and do things that revolve around surviving.
Uh-huh.
And what he taught us, and a lot of what Buddhist or Eastern teachings teach us, it's a lot about, okay, we've transitioned from having to live in that way because now we don't technically need tribal communities to survive. I can go work, get a home on my own, and not really need any type of community to help me do that if I don't want to be a part of something. And what I liked that he shared is that we still, especially here in the US, we still are kind of stuck in that survival mode. And what
Uh-huh.
we have not done is transitioned into now that we survive, how do we thrive? And so for me, I was like, oh, that was something that resonated with me because I think about that a lot. And that's what got me into really about this whole idea of scarcity mindset, how we're always competing, how the playing field doesn't feel leveled, and how people intentionally are reaching for things and they have no idea why they're reaching for it. They just know that it's something that's going to bring them success. And then when they find success, to his point,
They're
they
still
feel like
not validated.
yeah, they're still
There's
not
no
validated.
validation.
But in doing that, they ruin people trying to find their own validation that they will never get
Hmm.
because there's no contentment within themselves. They haven't really looked within themselves because they're always seeking external validation. And so, I was like, oh my gosh, that is deep, from because we don't think about how we are kind of stuck. We're stuck in that survival of the fittest. And I say that sometimes. I'm like, man, this world here is the survival of the fittest. Man, it's and we've really kind of lost ourselves in that. But this respective thought process, this concept that Joseph is bringing, it really helps us to better understand some of the teachings that we have found when we learn about the idea of meditation and what that brings about. And um, and so that was something that really resonated with me. There was a quote in the book, and he said, and yet there is a mismatch because we are navigating today's world with a mind that is still programmed with primitive fear.
Hmm.
The
Fear.
problem is that we often forget, hold on, that fear. The problem is that we often forget this distinction. Our mind's duty is to keep us alive, and our consciousness duty is to help us feel fulfilled. Our soul is the reason why we're even on this journey in the first place, to find peace within ourselves, right? And with that understanding, there's no legalism behind that. You don't have to do this in order. There's you get to choose, right? You get to choose. And the choice all comes about through your thought process, how you
Right.
think,
Mhm.
right?
The
He had
contingencies and all.
correct, correct, and it is all based on how you think. So if you are someone who has the capability to live in the present moment, who has that level of awareness, right? Who has that level of control, you will not only have that contentment within yourself, but that energy that you've created within yourself will release, and others will have the capability to experience and begin to ask the question, well, how come she's always in a state of peace? How come she always appears to be focused? Or how come he doesn't get riled up when this happens, right? And so we begin to live by example and be an example
Right.
to
Be that
others, right?
example. It's easier
And
to
be,
be that example. Yeah.
yeah. And so, it was, though that was really, really a highlight for me when I read that in the book. It really helped because I always feel like in order for us to change, in order for us to begin to move in a different direction, I feel like it's good to have an understanding of how did it come about in the first place? How did we get here?
Right.
And then begin to think about, okay, now that we know that we're here, what are some of the things that we can do to improve? Because there's always room for improvement.
Always. And if
Always
you're
room for.
not, I think he's said something in there about that, about people who about improvement. He said, oh my gosh. He said that, and it had to do with the difference between someone who continues to learn versus someone who has learned all that they're going to learn.
Well, I think
You know what I'm talking about?
I don't know if this is it, but there was one quote in the book where he talked about self-actualization. And he talked about how self-actualization isn't to try to improve ourselves because we think we're not enough, but to let go of the illusion that we're not already enough as we are. And and what I took from that is not that, you know, we shouldn't improve ourselves, right? But don't don't hinder don't hinder your growth because you feel like you have not arrived.
Well, so this is so that point was that many people try to improve themselves by thinking harder about their problems, analyzing them endlessly. But according to the author, overthinking often creates the suffering in the first place. Trying to fix it with more thinking just deepens the loop. Real clarity comes when the mind becomes quiet and present, not when it's overloaded with analysis, which is why a year ago, see, I shouldn't have stopped meditating,
Mm-hmm.
but it's why a year ago I was doing a lot better, even with all the chaos around me, all this distraction around me, but giving at least 10 to 15, even sometimes 20 minutes to meditation
Mm-hmm.
to cleanse or to detox Even if it's just for 10 minutes, just detoxing the mind
Okay.
by being quiet and present.
Okay.
I was doing a lot better. I was
Mm-hmm.
being a lot more successful with the things that I was placing in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And would you find, because how I was when I was going through this process of trying to, as I told you, I'm terrible at meditating because I really just cannot quiet my mind. I can't quiet it. It's very difficult for me to do. And would you say that you found yourself in a better state as it relates to meditation, um, because you now you no longer ruminated. You no longer had ruminating thoughts. You allowed those thoughts to come. You allowed the feeling to,
Acknowledge the
you
thought
acknowledged
and
it,
let it go.
right, and you were allowed, and you allowed it to pass. You no longer ruminated over what that experience was like, how it made you feel, etc. You allowed the feeling to come, but then, as you mentioned, you let it go. Would you say that that is what you found yourself doing more? Because you saying that made me think about kind of like what you're going through now, and how you said it's this experience that you're going through is really eating at you, right? The experience that you're going through is like you can't let it go, right? And so, that's the beauty, I think, about like meditation. I think that's the beauty as well with regards to what Joseph is has some of the concepts that he has brought forward. I mean, it is very difficult, some of the concepts, and I think it's because we just have not really been taught that here, and but it's helpful that we are learning about it now. It's helpful that our children are learning about it in hopes maybe they could teach us,
Mhm. Oh gosh,
as
and when you
they.
say about children, that one, I don't know if I sent you that one content creator, the African guy with his little small son, and how
Mhm.
he's like he does not allow the electronics, the technology. He wants him to learn the traditional way and then infuse that or give sprinkles, integrate that, give sprinkles of that as they go along so that he can have the whole experience. I think that this technology is fragmenting our experience, and the reason why we have to use all these other different strategies and tactics to feel complete. The mindfulness, where was it when we were, I mean, mindfulness would have helped us be better athletes if you think about it. Like,
Think mindfulness has always been around, Tiffany.
but
I
it
just
just
think
never,
that
we weren't
how
calling it mindfulness. I mean,
no,
I don't.
we wasn't calling it mindfulness, and we was not practicing it the way that it's practiced in the Eastern Hemisphere. That's it. It's always been around, but we weren't really taught, because if you think about it, a mindfulness is very similar to prayer, right? But within prayer, we're taught acts, we're taught to have a conversation. Like we're
Uh-huh.
taught to have a conversation, to think about how to get through things, to ask for help. Everything is really, from my point of view, external. Nothing that anything that we wanted to accomplish had to be a gift that came from someone, not from internal. And that's where I think mindfulness teaches us to come within and try to find the source of our inspiration internally. And uh, and I'm just going to stick with Christianity because this is what we grew up in. Christianity has always taught the external, almost the external validation, if you think about it. We didn't say that. But it is external because God had to approve. You had to seek help from outside of yourself. whereas Eastern teachings
Hmm.
have you reflect inward.
Right. Like you are God.
Your
You
divinity
are
is
the
within,
right. Right.
right?
It's not somebody
And
that's actually sitting high looking
and
low.
so when you put the expectation of your happiness and your contentment on an external being, what happens? You lose accountability. You don't take accountability for your own success. And
Right.
I said that was something that I did not agree with the religion. I was like, I don't think we should do that. It's not for me. I mean that's how you teach. I understand, but I don't think that we should teach that because you really are teaching people not to be accountable. And then we always say it. And I was like, but why do we say faith without works is dead? Why,
That is actually a really
what,
good point that we
why
don't,
do we, huh?
because it's easier for them to shift it to, I prayed to God about it, and then you just repeat the behavior.
Then repeat the behavior. There's no,
That
there's no
or the
accountability.
offense.
Right, right, right. And so, and so that's why, I'm not trying to take, well, how I view God is a little bit different than a lot of how people view God, but I don't think it has to take away from the teachings, right? When we begin to seek the answers, the understanding, and really reflect internally, I feel like we are more apt to hold ourselves accountable for the realization of our objective, of our goal. And when we don't arrive, when we don't meet it, it's not, oh, the devil. Oh, oh, God didn't want me to have that.
Right.
Oh, God dang it. It's you. You didn't
You
want
don't
it.
want it. Right.
You know what I'm saying? So we have to be really, really careful and
And
that
that's
that
the
bothered me.
overwhelming part to me, part.
Mhm,
That's the only overwhelming part to me.
mhm.
That just what you said, like, how did we get here?
How
How
did
did
that
we
come
not
about?
see this? The reason we didn't see it before now is
Because we
because
were
we weren't
seeking it
present then.
and we were seeking it external. We seeking
We weren't
external,
aware.
but you're seeking it externally. You're seeking it externally. And so but this is all interesting. Like I said, it's fairly new concept for me, even for me.
Uh-huh.
I'm not going to act like I've only studied yoga since 2021, 5 years. I meditation I just got into maybe a couple years ago. So I am not even purporting that I am a guru, I understand it, etc. I'm still learning, but I am open. I'm open to having a better understanding. And as I had mentioned earlier, with some of the concepts that he's talked about in this book, while I'm not 100% on board, I'm open to trying to understand where he's coming from, trying to understand how will this positively benefit me within my life. And as I raise my children, how are some of these concepts going to be helpful for them? uh, I love that when we talked about it already, the fact that he provided techniques and ways in which we can begin to implement some of these ideas. And so, but it's all new. But I'm
Right.
open. I'm open. I'm open to having a better understanding. So I look forward to continuing on this journey to learn a little bit more. There was a final piece that I wanted to bring up, and I think it was about at the end. He talked a lot about, or he talked, there was a chapter about goals, dreams, and ambitions. And I told you we would talk about this as you were sharing earlier, how, some of your goals, you were like, I don't know what I was thinking. Why did I, desire
Right.
to have a
Like
brick
I'm
and
living
mortar?
a good life.
Right. I was living a good life, but he
What do I
talked
want to take a step back for?
you didn't take a step back. This is all a part of your journey. You had to experience that. You, and
You
I
know
mean,
what?
you
I
can.
don't know the why. I guess in the book, I believe he said you don't have to understand the why.
Mm-mm.
Like quit trying to understand the why.
Right, right. But sometimes, though, well, not quit trying to understand the why. I think you need to have an understanding. Don't ruminate. I really think that word needs to be there. Don't overanalyze. Don't ruminate so much that you can't find the resolution. You can't find the solution. You can't get through whatever it is that you are attempting to get through. And one of the things that, and so that's my understanding, and I think that's why this particular book is kind of difficult for individuals to talk about because sometimes, especially when you're learning something new, you have to put it in a way that helps you to understand. Are
Right.
you going to be fully correct? Maybe not. There's going to be some components, but then, of course, as I mentioned earlier, read it again,
Right. I,
right?
I
So,
liked the one concept in his teaching about good and bad.
right. Yeah. You like that?
Uh-huh.
Are you talking with, give me an
Where he
example so I'm on the
where
same page with you.
so what he was basically saying, don't look at things as good or bad.
Hmm.
Hold on, I'll expound on that.
Well, I say that, right? And the good, the bad, the indifferent, it's all good. And what I mean by that
Oh
is
yeah,
that
you do say that.
find the silver lining. I say that all the time. And I was like, oh, that's funny. I said that because that's something that I talk about. I don't believe that there is a good or a bad. I think it's all a part of our growth, our development, the learning experience that we have to go through. And how we feel about it as we're going through it, right?
So
Maybe you don't,
labeling experiences as good or bad
right.
is a mental judgment. Hold on. Mental judgments created by thought, but not inherent qualities of the events themselves.
Correct.
So good and bad are interpretations, not facts. And a lot of the thinking that we do are not facts, but we tell ourselves that they are. And then
Right.
that's what causes the suffering and the pain. But
Exactly.
the events themselves are usually neutral. The mind then interprets the event and assigns meaning. So, for example, you lose a job
Hmm.
and then you interpret it as this is terrible, or this is an opportunity, or this will force me to grow. The
Hmm.
event did not change, only the thinking about it did.
Right.
And then the mind automatically categorizes everything. So the
Hmm.
brain constantly sorts experiences into categories: good or bad, success or failure, safe or dangerous, gain or loss. And
Hmm.
this is a survival function. So this goes back to that mindset of scarcity.
Right.
Um, Early humans needed quick judgments to survive threats.
Right.
So, and you would think like everything else evolves. Why our mind can't fucking just evolve? Like, why are we stuck there?
Hmm.
Like
Well, because we
why
put
that didn't
systems,
lead with evolution? Well, yeah, okay.
we put systems to keep it.
You're right, because you say in modern life, this system often misfires and creates unnecessary stress. A
I'm
small
telling you,
mistake at
we.
work might trigger thoughts like, this is bad, my career is ruined. The mind magnifies, intensifies. What is the other one? Uh, oh gosh, I was thinking of the other word. The mind magnifies the event because it is wired to detect threats.
Hmm. Hmm. But we literally create systems that hold us in with that hinders us from evolving.
Mm-hmm.
We really do.
And
We
then
really do.
certain groups of people are stuck in those in certain systems. Toya, I was going to relate this. I was actually going to ask you, could I share my screen so I could show you? Because remember earlier in the week when I called you and I told you about how they create images and they reinforce images about people, and it's almost kind of like a programming.
It is
Well,
programming.
oh
It
yeah,
is.
not kind of like. I hate that I say kind of. I don't know why I say kind of. Anyway,
Okay.
it's programming, right? So
Mhm.
like down in Skid Row, I wanted to show you pictures. Latoya, they are constantly recording down there. And the reason why is because it's content. Now it's content. Now it's considered content. Everything's content. I didn't realize on one of our buildings, one of the buildings that I even work in, we have a camera literally videoing everything that goes on right there on that corner. It's very busy corner, 6th and San Pedro, very busy corner, lots of drug activity, prostitution, purchasing of drugs right out in the open. That is legal basically, because they know this shit's going on. Anyway, I said all that to say they have this image, and I was gonna ask you to share. I was gonna share my screen and show you the image, excuse me, of the things that I see down there, and then show you the image of a successful person, right? And these
Mhm.
are most mainly people of color down there, right? You don't
Mhm.
see, you very seldom see whites or
Mhm.
anything other than blacks and Hispanics.
Mhm.
But you see this image, this very poor, this very downtrodden, this very pathetic image of a black person. And then you have me coming down there as a nurse practitioner, and it becomes like, which one is a believable image?
Mhm.
Because the majority of them that look like me are
Mhm.
impoverished, are marginalized, look like hell, you
Mhm.
know,
Mhm.
hell warmed over. Can you warm hell over? Anyway, they and so that's why I was telling you earlier in the week that that's why it's hard to thrive in certain places, because they have this image, the image has been reinforced, and then that becomes the
Norm.
belief. So stuck the
Mhm.
norm, the belief that that's actually who they are, because it's so many more of them doing that than there are doing this.
It's not about many more. It's about what media portrays. It's not many more. You
Right.
understand?
Because
They're
92% of Black women are
mhm,
educated.
educated. It's not many more. It's what the media portrays. Like I remember when I first came back, I was like, "Where are all the black women in the commercials?" I was like, "What's going on? What? Where are we at?" Like I would see black men with a white woman, or uh, uh, Hispanic and white, and I thought to myself, I was like, "Did black women just get erased or something? What is going on?" And it was prevalent. I was
We're
just like,
seen as a threat.
something is going on, and and we're taking notice. Okay. But it was something that was very disheartening, that I saw that, I was witnessing that it's changing. But I was concerned because I was like, there's something going on. Now, on top of that, the imagery that I was seeing was black women out of health, um, poor health, poor quality of life. And I was like, what is that imagery? Okay. Because that's not
Right.
even how I'm trying to live. It ain't even what I search for. What is wrong with my algorithm? Can we talk about
Toya. Oh,
that?
that's what I was going to tell you too earlier this week. I got to thinking when I was walking, listening to the book. I
Hmm.
said, you know what? I said, even my algorithm is trying to reinforce like this poor ass image of my people, of me, of
Hmm.
Black women. Even
Hmm.
my algorithm, shit, I ain't never even searched for. I ain't never even
You
searched. I
ain't
don't.
searching for it, but it's
And it just
pushing
comes
it
to
to
my
you.
phone. It's pushed to my
Yes.
phone. Like, what in the world? But why? And you know what, Toya? I say this in my head. Anytime something like that happens, I'll be like, wow, I wish they could push the lottery as easy. I wish they could push me some money as easy as it is to do that shit. Why the lottery? Why I can't win the lottery that easy? I know, I'm serious. Like it is so
Why don't
distressing.
you put
It's
why don't you push
distressing.
a couple bucks my way?
Right. It's so emotionally distressing though, but I do make that comment because it's very similar to when somebody's saying if I had $1 for every time that chick got
Right,
pushed my way, like
right.
like it is distressing. It's disgusting really to me. Like
No,
that
it is,
that in,
but this is how these systems are created, and these systems are created, like you said, to purport a certain image, to skew reality, and to
and skew
hinder
people's perspectives
and
about a certain group of people as well
there.
too. Because when I tell you, Toya, it is groups of people like you're poor, ma'am. You're
Mhm,
poor. For example, why I missed my flight yesterday. The TSA, there was one at the front, one at the end. Toya,
mhm,
when have you ever seen two TSA people checking on all these bags?
mhm,
Never. You would never because it's a breach of security.
mhm,
I had 3 laptops. I only had a carry-on in my personal, but I had the dog. I told you
mhm.
this, didn't I?
Right,
They
right,
didn't pat him down, nothing, didn't run his harness. The damn dog could be the bomb.
right,
Ain't ran nothing.
right.
So when I got to the end, she was like, "Oh, you flagged," and I was like, "Oh shoot, I forgot to take my laptop out the bag and place the 2 laptops in a separate bin." Wasn't
Okay.
paying attention. You can tell this woman is poorer than fucking dirt. They ain't even paying you. You know what she said to me? With her hearing aid in her ear, and I know you done lost your health insurance. She said, I have to send it back through. I said, but can you do it quickly? I have to do my job. Ma'am, who is your loyalty to? You're dumb. You're not even getting paid to be accurate at this point. And he didn't even pat me down. This is what I'm thinking in my head. This is
Mm-hmm.
what I'm thinking in my head. Now I'm forgetting why I'm telling you this, but I was telling you this because
Of
systems,
how systems. Yeah.
systems, how we have convinced people
Hmm.
that this is your plight when it ain't.
Right. Hmm.
That people are, when it is not, let me use the correct English, when
Hmm.
it is not. And
Hmm.
they have enabled in a Skid Row, I can use Skid Row as an example. Just because you're homeless, they give them housing to their housing is beautiful.
Hmm.
They tear their housing up. You want to know why? Because they enable them. Then people will get housing and still live out on the street. They will still burn trash, burn plastic, inhale the plastics,
Hmm.
and they've already been housed. And these systems enable these people to do this because they've been convinced that this is their plight. And then they have imposter syndrome. So when they get a nice place, they
Hmm.
still don't think they deserve it.
They don't deserve it.
They
Hmm.
still want to live out in front of the place that they were given. They don't even have to pay nothing to live there. Brand new, Toya, brand new housing.
Mm. Interesting.
Ain't it interesting?
Yeah.
How?
But
How do we leave from
capitalism.
right?
Hello.
But
This
how
is
do we
all
leave
about
from
money.
there? All about money.
When
That's
you
and
start,
that's what I was saying about Christianity, about a lot of different things that we talked about since
if
being
it
on
ain't
here.
making money, if it ain't making money, this would
Right.
it's making somebody money
Billions,
somewhere.
billions. My
Right.
CEO makes $400,000. I don't know what he does. He sees patients on Wednesday. I shouldn't say my CEO, the CEO. I'm a contractor, so I don't work for him. I,
Hmm.
I work for myself.
Right.
He makes 400. His salary is something like 400 some thousand dollars. I don't see no implementation of no new programs, nothing really, honestly, that unless I think of myself that they can be like, yeah, they can access all the services,
Hmm.
but when you have that kind of population, when you have a marginalized population like that, unfortunately, you've got to have additional, like you have to have supplemental. Like I can come up with my treatment plans. I can come up with, but for example, like a lot of my patients are morbidly obese. A lot of them, like probably half of my patients are morbidly obese.
Hmm.
We're giving Wegovy to homeless, morbidly obese people. What do you think they're going to use the syringes for? Homeless, substance abusing, because all of my patients are substance abusers. They're in recovery or they're in recovery.
Right, right,
Um, I don't know, Toy. It's just overwhelming. It's just a lot. It's a
mhm,
lot.
right.
Um,
Yeah,
I'm glad
but
I
this
get
is
I'm
what,
glad I get to move around.
yeah, yeah, but it's good that you have this experience because having that experience helps you to hopefully over time, especially as you continue with building your own business, etc., that you will have the ability to have a level of influence that will help to change or help us to begin to evolve because we really are struggling in that area. Because we really are, I mean, there's a lot of people who can just continue to dig their heels in and don't really want to see change come about in the way that it could. And a lot of it comes or is due to fear. But I'm not exactly sure why we fear change. Why do we fear it when it's
Why
a
do you
part
fear,
of
and especially when the changes where you're going to do better?
you?
Why do you
Well,
fear, why do you fear being better?
I really don't understand it. I
That's just
mean, because
manufactured.
you believe in God, and
Conditional, Toya,
you
the
you
things people believe and the
it
things
just
people are conditioned to believe is it, oh, this is the appropriate time to say diabolical. It is diabolical. It is legit, like it's unbelievable. It's it is when I tell you to watch it, like the other morning when I was driving down and I saw the people in the middle of the street because they'll just walk out in front of you. You be driving at 30, 40 miles and boom, you will have a homeless person. I said, okay, I am sorry. I am driving through your living room. I think I told you this before because you're literally driving through rooms in their house. They own them streets. That is their home,
right.
right? With them being homeless, So I almost became tearful because I said this
Hmm.
every day. And Toya, at the same time, I was going down that street at the same time every day. And I would see the same mom with the same three kids walking them kids through Skid Row. Kids aren't allowed in Skid Row.
Hmm.
Some of them will sleep out there. And then the one lady that I would always see in the morning that I wish I could help, but I know you can't help them, can't get tied in like that. She
Hmm.
passed away. They put the white tent over her.
Hmm.
Um, and then they divvied up her items. It get I said, this is
Wow.
a lot down here.
Hmm.
It's a lot.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
so anyway,
But
um,
no, it's but once again, good that you have that experience because hopefully you will, as at some point, once you continue and you grow within your discipline, hopefully can move from being, that individual contributor to a policymaker. Who knows, right?
right.
But it's very helpful that we have these type of experiences to help us better understand how we can begin um, to to be a conduit for change.
Hmm.
Um, the last thing that I had wanted to share because we were getting into it was about goals, dreams, and ambitions. So this is a great segue into this final piece that really hit home for me. Um, because he did talk a lot about, this whole idea of thinking and if you're sharing with us that we need to stop thinking, which I really believe that what we need to say is ruminating. But how do we continue to be goal oriented, to possess dreams, to possess ambition? And, he shared how we have to really understand the why behind our ambitions. is what we are pursuing in our life an act of inspiration or desperation? And when you begin to understand that origin, then you truly will be able to understand the outcome or what reaching a respective goal will provide you. And so I really I like that. That wasn't something that I don't know. It was unexpected, an unexpected conversation that was welcomed because I did. That was one thing that he was pretty good at was when you had all these questions. I'm like, well, if you can't think, how do you have goals and aspirations, right? What do
Right.
you mean when you say, stop thinking? How do we work through that? How do we? Because here, especially in the U.S., we talk a lot about positive thinking and make sure that you're thinking positively. If you can't think, how do you have or be positive? And so he really took time. Like, I love that he took that time to go through and help us to better understand the answers to some
Mhm.
of these questions. One of the quotes that I want to end on for this particular topic about goals, dreams, and ambitions was he said, if you really struggle with this concept, a simple way to know if a goal or dream is created out of inspiration is to remember the distinction between thoughts and thinking. Goals and dreams that come in the form of thought are created out of inspiration.
Mhm.
Goals and dreams that come from thinking are created out of desperation. Goals from desperation are typically rooted in fear and make your happiness conditional on achieving them. But goals from inspiration are rooted in love and focus more on the joy of doing over the outcome. Right? And so it made me think about this podcast, right? And we talk about this all the time. I feel in my life that I want to transition, but I really, really love doing this podcast. But I do know that a transition needs to come, and so
A
I
transition to what?
transition within like my career,
Oh,
doing
okay,
a
yeah.
little bit more focusing on my career, and so I've been transitioning for the past couple of years, which has been helpful, but being able to maintain like this really comes easy to me. Literally, like I literally can put everything together in 30 minutes like this, right? And so when I read through what he shared as it related to our goals and where do they stem from, I was like, gosh, I'm inspired, right? I do this not for validation, right? I don't do this because I need you to like me. I don't do this to be seen, right?
Right.
I literally do this because it is
Because we
something deep,
enjoy.
because we enjoy it, right?
Uh-huh.
I love being able to kick it with you. This is like the only time I really get to really kick
Right.
it with you, and get a level of expertise or understanding from your world because your world is really different from mine. It is super different. I'm like, what? What's
On so many levels.
on so many levels, but so and I'm inspired by some of the things that you encounter and how you manage it and what you're going through, whether it's in real estate, in the medical field, even with your own child, because I know that there's going to be, I got a kid like your kid. And I know, so it's good to get that perspective with regards to kind of, the management there. But it really comes through what we do because we're really inspired. And so I appreciated that component that came at the end within his book when he was trying to teach us how do we go about this process of being more mindful, lessening the ruminization. I think I just made up a word. Ruminating and overthinking, overanalysis. You know, this book it really was enlightening. I do strongly encourage individuals to read it. I do recommend though that you give yourself time because some of the concepts are difficult to digest. And so it will be good to read it a couple times. I read it already twice. I'm going to go through and read it again because I really do want to have a better understanding around this.
It
And
has a workbook.
yeah, he does have a workbook. I didn't buy the workbook this time. Normally I
You
do
don't
get
have
the
to. I can
workbook.
forward it to you because it
Oh,
comes
you
with the
don't?
audio. No, it comes with the audio.
Oh, maybe I do have it. I didn't see because sometimes they have like PDFs. I think he had some additional materials, but I didn't see the workbook included. But yeah, I would love to check it out. But yeah, it was pretty good. Was there anything else that you wanted to share?
No,
No?
I was
Okay.
gonna hit. I was gonna. I actually, when you spoke about inspiration, I
Uh-huh.
was gonna tap on that. And I had lost the thought, but you brought it back up. So no.
Okay. Okay. Well, very good. All right, folks. Well, that's a wrap. Thank you so much for joining us today here on Proactive is the Way.
Join us in 2 weeks as we begin a powerful new series exploring a transformative truth. Your illness is not a death sentence, and death is not the end. Next month, we journey into the story of Anita Morjani, discovering how a life threatening illness became an awakening both in life and beyond it. Together, we'll explore illness and healing beyond the physical, releasing fear and embracing love, and the deeper understanding that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. What if illness is not the end, but an invitation to evolve? What if death is not something to fear, but a doorway to a new beginning? This series will challenge how you see life, healing, and what it truly means to live. To prepare for our next series, please pick up a copy of our featured book, Dying to Be Me. Details are in the description. For access to all replays and to learn more about Kinky Knots Cafe's Proactive is the Way, please visit us on all major social networking and podcasting platforms. Stay proactive